and welcome to another edition to our Nonprofit Hub Hubinar. This is a really exciting one for me today because we have a good old friend, Tom Ahern. He's not old, but he's a good friend. He's been around a long time for us. And we also have one of our longtime supporters who is sponsoring today. So it's just a great day. And we have EveryAction here today. And Melissa, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having us. We're excited to hear Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna sponsor something, you sponsor Tom. This is gonna be a great show. So tell us a little bit about what EveryAction is up to today.
Yeah, EveryAction. So we offer a unified CRM. We build fundraising tools built by fundraisers for fundraisers. So we consider people like Tom and Nonprofit Hub great friends for the work that we do.
Yeah, and we appreciate you again so much for all that you've done for Nonprofit Hub. And just so everyone knows that's on the line, stick around for just a few minutes afterwards. Melissa and company are going to show us the cool stuff that EveryAction is doing right now. And it's definitely worth your wait, especially if you're struggling with CRM issues, because I know that is a constant state of concern for a lot of nonprofits, and I know that EveryAction can solve your problems for that. Just so everyone knows, as we're continuing to get people online, we do record this, so we will have a recording, and I know Tom will turn on the fire hose, and you definitely will want to watch this again, and you'll probably want to share it with friends. So definitely be on the lookout for an email we will send to you with that recording. So with all of that, Tom, how are you today?
Well, Randy, I am good. Melissa, it's very nice to have you sponsoring this. EveryAction's a terrific product. And today we're going to do kind of the essence of how to create a case for support. There is a longer version, but today we're going to get down to the nut.
All right. Well, I am going to give you all the time that you deserve, Tom, so I'm going to step aside here and let you go.
Okay. Well, you're looking at me, and and Randy's wrong. I am old. And I got a dog here, and that's a loaner dog because puppies and kittens help you raise money, so that's a cheap trick right there. Writing a powerful case for support. It surprises me. I was teaching this summer at a university where they have a master's program for fundraisers, and most of the people there are major gift officers, and one of the exercises we did in class was, tell me what your case for support was. And to my surprise, that actually was the hardest thing for them to figure out. They just beat their head against it, and nobody had one just on the tip of their tongue, and even with some instruction they were struggling with it. So today we're going to go through what I learned from one of my many mentors, thousands of them by now, a guy named Ron Arena, who is the communications chief for a major consulting firm called Martz and Lundy. Many of you will have heard of them. And Ron had me on board as a contract case writer for a while, and he taught me, his approach, which is to answer basically just 3 questions. The questions all are about making somebody, a stranger perhaps, comfortable with making a gift. Because, honestly, if you were to bring Charles Darwin back from the dead and say, look, is it, what is philanthropy? How does that make, where does that fit into evolution? He would say, well, it doesn't, because, I'm giving away my hard-earned money to you when in fact I need resources, and that's what money is. So, we have to have answers for why people would give, and a lot of times the answers we think work are kind of irrelevant to the donor. And so here's something here that I'm just introducing this idea today because it just occurred to me yesterday that, in fact, if you look at your annual report as a case for support, I think you might come up with a very different annual report. And let me show you what a very different annual report looks like. But to preface what you're about to see, I want to point out a fact of life which has changed in the human brain. Not all that much does change in the human brain, but this has since the year 2000. In the year 2000, scientists measured the attention span of the goldfish, and the human attention span at that point was actually longer than the attention span of the goldfish. Now, that was 2000. In 2005, Mark Zuckerberg at Harvard introduced the original idea of Facebook, and it became widely adopted in the next couple of years. In 2007, the smartphone came along, and since then we've been walking around staring at our palm. And since then, also, something's happened in the brain, and that is that the average adult human attention span is now no longer than the goldfish. Now, it's down to 8 seconds. So sometimes I think, particularly with communications work, and we struggle, every word is thought through and committed through, and, everything gets spun through so many filters, and it finally gets out the door, and we think, now they'll read it at the same with the same level of intensity. And in fact, no, they don't. They barely look at what we put out as messaging and communications, and you have to be fast. You have to be much faster. So what I'm showing you as a model was produced recently by Agents of Good, which is a creative house that specializes in fundraising. They're up in Toronto. Amazing. John Lepp and Jen Love and others. And they do one-of-a-kind work. Best stuff I know. Always surprising, always thoughtful, always different. And this is the cover of what is the annual report for the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia. But look at all the voice balloons are me. I'm pointing out that all the things that are trying to grab your attention. The first is the shape, the heart shape. Right away, it's a romance. You got this happy couple. You got this is printed on paper, but it looks like faux leather. You've got their first names, Colina and David, and they don't call it an annual report. They go the donor-centered route, and they call it a gratitude report. And who's getting the gratitude are all the donors who have participated. And of course, they have their name there, the Alzheimer's Society, and the date. So the technical things that you would have on an annual report. Who are you? Alzheimer's Society, the date, which year is it? 2017. Those are there, but everything else there is basically trying to say, can I get your attention for a second? And you open it up. This is the first spread, and you see photos from the marriage of these two, and they're happy and they're young, and then they have kids, and you can see some things are highlighted in yellow. Now, we know from eye motion studies that people will look at anything that's different kind of first. They'll look at the photos definitely first, and then they'll look at the highlighting probably second. And what they learn from the highlighting, as you follow this story, you can see it says, I liked everything about her. And then they do a little bit more of their story together as a couple with kids. And it still is, but in a different way. Our life was busy and joyful. It is still, but in a different way since Alzheimer's joined our family, and now the other shoe has dropped. And what you're seeing on the screen here, I took all the highlighted, the yellowed stuff from this annual report, this gratitude report, and I just listed it here so you could see how the story is told through the highlights. I liked everything about her. Then Alzheimer's joined the family. She was only 57, early onset. It's such a good feeling to reach out for help and have someone see you, pay attention to you. And then you, and now you is no longer, you is now the donor, because, and I'll show you where that transition happens. You are part of the story, thanks to you, and then it goes into pure donor love and donor centricity. So these are some of those highlights I just showed you, and you can see they're progressing, and her condition, her early onset Alzheimer's, is getting worse. They're still traveling. She needs a wheelchair, but they're still traveling, and they're trying to, they're making the best of it. And you got people commenting. The children are commenting on how it's all going. And then here's the transition. Notice the type just get bigger, for one thing. This is now talking directly to the donor. You are part of this story. Thanks to you, we are able to do this work. And then the back cover, you can see there is Colina, and she's doing art now. That's part of her life, and she's living with Alzheimer's. So that, you take your annual report and give it some extra utility. Tell a story, tell a single story, so that I don't need 10 stories. I just need one to get it. Celebrate your donors with donor centricity. Tell them what a good job they're doing, not exactly what a good job you, the organization, is doing. And now you've got me looking forward to your annual report, because it's bringing joy into my life. Now, let's go backwards to Ron Arena's 3 big questions. The first one is why us? Now, us being the organization. What is it you people do? And that's, even though I may be a donor to you, I really don't know I couldn't pass a 10-question test on, I could maybe get 1 question out of 10 right on what it is you do. So you tell me what you do over and over and over, and I don't really need to know the details of the program. I need to know that you're really good at something, so we're number 1. And here's an example of that from Charles Drew University. And Charles Drew University, very interesting, it was established in the Watts area in Los Angeles after the riots in order to bring something into a community that didn't have a lot of assets. And so they created a medical school there. And this is how they describe themselves: a little mission-driven place, wants to be recognized, providing the best care for the poorest people. Now, I put some of that in red because I want you to see that that is the part that matters to the donor, providing the best care for the poorest people. Remember, we're number 1 at something, the best care for the poorest people. Now, I want to be part of that. That sounds like a good thing. Now, a lot of times what you're doing, a case doesn't have to be, in fact, it shouldn't be long. It should be something that I can get out of my mouth, in a matter of seconds. So here's an example of what I mean by that. This was a little story told to me. I was coming in as a consultant, and because it was a charter school and it had to do with education, they were talking about pedagogy, and I'm sorry, I'm just not polite, and I was rolling my eyes because you can't use your abstract language outside of the office. It just doesn't work with the quote-unquote general public. They realized they weren't kind of penetrating, and they said, okay, well, let us tell you a story. And they told me the story of this little girl. She came in with her mom, and the girl was at that point in the 2nd grade, and her mom was just frantic and worried and despairing because it was clear that her daughter, her child, was not succeeding at school, was not happy at school, was not, hitting the mark she needed to hit. And the 3rd grade is known as kind of watershed year, that if you are not getting school, you're going to struggle from that point on. So mom is really worried. Anyway, so the little girl comes in, and the teachers at the charter school say, honey, would you go out to the chalkboard there and just write the word cat? And so now I can see this little girl who's failing in school going up to the chalkboard and going K-A-T. said, so we had her for a year. We do our mystical pedagogy, which in the case of this particular school uses music to teach elementary, readability and mathematics and so forth, 1, 2, 3s, ABCs. And they said to me, at the end of the school year, this girl who could not spell cat can now spell Tchaikovsky. Now, here's why this mattered to me, because I had to look up, and I have 2 degrees from an Ivy League school. I had to look up how to spell Tchaikovsky in order to create this slide that you're seeing on the screen. So I went from who are you and what are you people talking about to wow, this is amazing, because in the context of my experience, I certainly couldn't have spelled Tchaikovsky in the 3rd grade. So, they proved to me, without really going into the details of their programs, how great these programs ultimately were. There are often at your fingertips a lot of little stories, and I keep emphasizing little because of the goldfish problem. We don't have a lot of time. We might, if somebody really gets into you, they will read, but initially, first contact, first impressions, we don't have a lot of time. So we tell micro stories. And what's the fastest way? Well, you already know that because you've heard this a million times, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here's an annual report, i.e. what I am now calling a case statement in disguise, from Hartford Youth Scholars, and they do incredible work. And these are the kids they serve. You can see them right there on the cover, the 2016 cover. And you open this up, and what's the first thing you encounter? Those 2 adults saying mission accomplished. And who the heck are they? They are the co-executive directors of Hartford Youth Scholars. And they, mission accomplished. That's it. A photo in 2 words, mission accomplished. What do they do? Well, if you care, what they do is they grab smart kids in public schools in Hartford, which is not is well known as not a particularly successful school system in the urban inner city. They grab them in the 6th grade and they start mentoring them and they start tutoring them and they give them weekend programs and after school programs and summer programs. And these smart kids, who some of whom have been hiding the fact that they actually they're nerdy, now are 100% of them graduate from high school, and they all go on to college, where they then graduate again because the Hartford Youth Scholars people don't leave them at high school. They stay with them because actually getting through college is even harder. And so that, it's a very interesting program, but it's all summed up in a picture and a couple of words. If you are not sure, now this exercise is not idle. If you're not sure why your organization matters, you think you know why it matters, but pretend, get the staff, get the board together, pretend you've gone out of business tonight. What is the world going to miss tomorrow that's gone? And that's why you really matter, not why you may think you matter. The programs you do are to the outside world. They're just a means to the end. What the outside world, your donor, is looking for, is to see good results thanks to their generosity. Second question: why now? Where's the urgency? So here's a case for support from Planned Parenthood of Southern New England, and this is a campaign that has concluded, and it concluded over goal ahead of time. What did they bring to their prospective donors? Well, they brought this piece of information from the CDC, from the top medical authority in the United States, that teen pregnancy is a winnable battle. So now we're saying, yeah, it is. Will you make it your fight? And the urgency, it is a winnable battle. We don't have to have this problem where kids, find themselves having a child at age 14, drop out of school, blow up their life. Will you make it your fight? and that's all. This is answering that question. Where's the fire? Well, we have a chance now to do something about teen pregnancy. Here's the Sierra Club, 30 words. This is the entire case. The Sierra Club and the end of global warming. Give us your help and 7 years. Dear citizen of planet Earth, human activity caused the problem. Human activity can stop it. And within 30 words, you have it entirely framed. Where do you want to go? What is the goal here? And let's go back to Hartford Youth Scholars, because I totally fell in love with these people. And, part of this is a small group. This may look like, and it is, it's beautiful photography. It's commercial grade photography. It's something you'd see in a catalog selling fashion stuff. But it is kids. This is every year they have a new cohort of smart kids who are coming into the Hartford Youth Scholar Program. And this is what we're saying to donors is, look, these are what you're looking at here. These kids are future college graduates thanks to this program. Will you be part of the next cohort? There's the urgency. It's not sometimes your urgency is we have a new group coming in and we need your help to make this as good as possible. The third question you need to answer is, why would I, as a donor with my own thoughts and my own beliefs and values and so forth, why would I care about your thing? And this is where donor centricity is your friend, because donor centricity really bridges the gap emotionally. You don't have to explain to me stuff. Basically, you enlist me because I have an emotional response. Now, one of the easiest ways to get an emotional response is to flatter me. Now, in this book, Brainfluence, is a group of short essays that are talking about various discoveries in neuromarketing, neuroscience, and how you put that to work in the world selling stuff. But in our case, selling means selling the idea to become a supporter of our charity. And what they found was that the human brain cannot discern actually between false and true flattery. All flattery feels good, so go ahead and flatter away. Even when I know it's false flattery, it still gives me a feeling that I like you people. Now, we have something new, just learned about it today from Dawn Fleming. It's the Fleming formula. It's her formula. She's, as you can see, Donor Relations Director for the Salvation Army of Southern New England. And here's her formula for flattery and getting it right. Compliment the donor, then inform them a bit, then compliment them again, then inform them a bit more, then compliment, then inform, compliment, then inform, take them on a journey, compliment, then take them further on the journey. Now, you can see on the right, it says not this order. The sequence here is very important. It's not arbitrary. You start with the compliment, not with the information. So don't start by talking about your stuff and your programs and all the rest of it, because, hey, you care, but the outside world does not. Start with, you're a wonderful person because you support us. And the reason you do this is because of a phenomenon, again, neuroscience, called anchoring. Anchoring was discovered by a couple of Israeli psychologists back in the 70s, and the proof is overwhelming. Basically what it is, layman's terms, is that whatever you tell me first kind of frames the discussion from that point on. So if you tell me about yourself first, inform the donor. I'm actually not, I'm kind of like, yeah, so. Whereas if you start by flattering me, compliment the donor, I go, oh, really? And I pay more attention. It's just automatic. Most nonprofits, and I've looked at thousands of pieces of material, analyzed them, evaluated, audited them, and so forth and so on. And most charities talk the way you see on the screen. We did this amazing thing. We did that amazing thing. Oh, by the way, if you send in a check, we're going to put your name on a list. Thanks. That is not emotionally satisfying, emotionally gratifying. This, though, this is the donor-centered approach. Basically, what's happened here is we have inverted the order. We're following the formula we just saw, and the donor goes first with your help. All these amazing things we're going to tell you about happen. And part two, just as important, without your help, they won't. Okay? That's the Fleming formula. Now, another thing you need to know about giving. This comes out of this book that you see the cover of on the screen, and this is the Compton Group. They have done, when they published this book, they'd already done over 1,000 capital campaigns successfully, and they just were taking their company knowledge. They threw it between two covers. They slapped a small price on it, and you could buy everything they knew. The key motivator for giving, this is a quote from this book, is not your organization's need for cash. The key reason for giving, motivator, is that you're putting some kind of juicy opportunity in front of me, and I go, oh yeah, I want to be part of that. So, you now are getting an MBA, the right offer in front of the right person at the right time, and you got a sale. So let's go back. We had the three questions: us, now, and you. Why us? Why now? Why you? And they can be. This is what I want to point out here. They are not. There's not some formal sequence. These are not. They have to be done 1, 2, 3. They can be done in any order. And in fact, as you probably have intuited from the discussion of flattery, that putting you first isn't a bad idea. Now, let's look at an actual case. It has succeeded and gone over goal. True North, it's called. It's from the Anchorage Museum. And you can see that this is the cover. See, it's got a title, True North. The campaign to go world class fast. This is a fund drive without a deadline. Faster we attract support, faster we go. So they didn't actually say, well, we have to bring all this money in by 2020. They made a different kind of case. The case was it's melting. And here's the thing. You've got, you have these kind of bold statements that are dramatic, because they are dramatic, as all eyes now turn north. What happens in Alaska, what changes here, those things now matter to everyone on Earth. And why is that the case? Well, here's a very typical headline these days. This is 2017. I can find the same headline every year, only far, more exclamation points every year. Melting Arctic ice cap falls to well below average. It's becoming, it's going to be an ice cube eventually in a glass and on a cruise ship going through that part of the world. And that's not a good thing for the billions of people that live close to the ocean, and they're going to be moving. And so this is a big planetary scale story. And we bring this again. We're back to the case, the True North case. Alaskans are living inside one of the biggest, most complex stories of our time. The world is watching. And we're setting up the prospective donor. We're saying, look, if you love Alaska, if you feel Alaska is part of you and you're part of Alaska, we're the right people to tell this story. We need to be the best Arctic museum in the world, because right now, this is a great museum, by the way. If you're ever in Anchorage, definitely go. It's probably one of the top attractions. It's amazingly thoughtful. It is associated with the Smithsonian, brilliant displays, but it is kind of a regional museum. Now with the ice cap changing so rapidly up in the north, they want to go global. They want to capture that story. They're not taking a political position. They just want to capture the story. And so what is it you guys do? Well, usually in a case you will have what I call a nut shell description that kind of shows what it is you do. And in their case, they have this 2-page spread, a short recent history of the museum and its trajectory. So, we're suggesting that it has it's going somewhere. That's the trajectory. And, some pictures from various exhibits that they've had at the museum. And now you come to this page, and we say this repeatedly in this case. We need you with us on this journey. Dear true believers in Alaska, we can't do this without your help. And where does this all come from? Well, that the guy pointing at you saying we need you, that's a World War I recruiting poster. From that poster, I think, 10 million people enlisted in the British Army. 600,000 of them died. It is one of the strongest cases and simplest cases for support that I know of, and it's just two pronouns and emphasis on we, that is the empire, this thing that you have some affiliation with, emotionally needs you. So Alaska needs you. It could have been a pointing polar bear. And then a couple other messaging points that you might want to be aware of. Every gift makes a difference. Don't be chasing just the rich folk, because the rich folk aren't going to get you there, not alone. You need a base, you need the whole pyramid, you need the base of support. And so invite everybody. Make sure that's a clear message. See, it's in the big type. Every gift makes a difference. Democratize the giving. But invite everybody in. Big tent. And then this is the end of the case for True North, the last spread just before the back cover. And we have a couple of kids, and they're there on purpose because we know that the cuteness factor is something that is, a psychological fact in humans. The biology is emperor or empress. And biology says we take care of our young. Biology says there is something. You look it up in Wikipedia. There is something called the cuteness factor. And if you look it up in Wikipedia, you'll see there's a heck of a lot of science behind it. And basically, it's puppies and kittens and kids suggest to me, an adult with a credit card, that I could be of some use to them. I could help them. They are still vulnerable. They still need my help. And so, that's why there's a dog at the front of my show, and that's why you just saw kids in the case for the Anchorage Museum. Okay, let's look at some other dark arts. Selling your story, not just telling your story. Neuroscience, again, we try to rest as much of our decision making. What kind of message? What should we show? What should we say first? We rest that on whatever we have from neuroscience that says, yeah, this will probably work most of the time for most people. And what we know is, you can see the science here, anything new, including the word new, triggers a chemical reaction. It's in my brain. It feels good. It's a fudge drug. I don't know which one it is, oxytocin or something, gets spurted out when I encounter this new information. And so I pay more attention. Here's an example from a case for support for a cancer center. And it came out of interviews with cancer survivors. And the questions, what would tell me what it was like, what was the experience like, blah, blah, blah. And they would, go on, and it's always horrendous, and it's always an ordeal, and it's always terrible. But one person said, everything, your entire life's on hold, your hair falls out, you're full of toxins, you're sick as a dog all the time, exhausted. And what is the worst part of the treatment? It's the commute. Because you're going into the big city over bad roads, busy, bad, potholed roads. This was in Massachusetts. Potholes, part of everybody's daily life, and so what was the case about? It was about building a great cancer center out in the suburbs, where you didn't have to get on the highway and drive into a big city that's a very old city for the United States anyway, and is, jammed and crowded and twisted and just a nightmare driving in. So That is, tell me something different. Or here's good advice from our recently deceased guru in chief, Jerry Panis. And he said in this book, many things he said are worth knowing about, but just choose one. Make it bigger. Make the thing that you're talking about bigger than just your program. So here's an example from the campaign for Texas, Keeping It Wild. Texas has an interesting problem with nature because they don't have a lot of it. Most of nature in Texas is in private hands, not in public hands. And it's being overburdened because Texas is a very fast-growing state. A lot of people moving there. So this is, you were going to people that care about this, basically, wealthy oil people in Houston and stuff, and saying, we want you to help keep Texas, Texas. Now that right away, it's a very, it's very intentional. We want them to think, whoop, wait a minute, what are you talking about? The Texas is going to be Texas, the thing I love. Yes, we want them thinking that because that's loss aversion, and then once you get loss aversion going, they're much more likely to want to join the campaign. The campaign, you got a destination, a place you want to go, a vision, and you want to get there fast. So today you are at point A. Whatever you can do today, that's point A, and what you're selling though is point B. Where do you want to go? What's your B? And so we go back to the True North campaign, Anchorage Museum. What their B was the campaign to go world class, to no longer be just, quote unquote, just a great regional museum, but to tell the Arctic story. And soon, because frankly, waiting to do this 10 years from now, everything's going to be really, really changed. Here's the B for a campaign I also helped with that went over goal very quickly because the offer was great. The opportunity was great. They had two maps. This summed up the entire case. On the left was the map as it was or is today, because the program is just starting. And you can see all the conserved land. That's all the green. This is in western Massachusetts, beautiful part of the state. But even though the land is conserved and so remains as habitat for wildlife and so forth, you can't hike from one parcel to another because there are no connecting trails. So the idea was to create a connecting trail system similar to what is often you will run across, like in France, in Europe, Italy, Spain, up in Switzerland, and so forth, where there are trails everywhere, and you can kind of march for hundreds of miles from town to town. They want to do that, and as soon as you brought this to the right people, again, it's putting it in front of the right people, the ones who love nature, loved hiking, loved bird watching, all the rest of it. They said, wow, yes, let's do that. And again, it's visual, so it's much faster than explaining it. Here is a community hospital. And in focus groups, they ask people, well, what would you expect to happen to you if you had a heart attack and ended up in our emergency room? And people said, we'd expect to die because you're not good. And that was bad news, but in a way it turned out to be great news because for this particular campaign, which was to build a new emergency room, they then simplified the case. This is the middle of the centerfold in the case. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in here, technical stuff. But for the most part, what they're promising to the community is bigger, faster, better. You won't die here. Community college. This one, community college is very important to a healthy economy because they turn out good workers. This was for Calgary, Bow Valley College, and this was the particular spread that probably made the biggest difference. Everybody talks about job creators, but what about employee creators? And that goes right to the heart of the people who are going to be the most prominent donors to a campaign such as this, and that will be your business leaders, because the number one expense any business has is personnel. And if they get great personnel and they don't have to fire those people, that is a huge benefit to the business. And that's exactly what Bow Valley College, this particular community college, turns out is great employees. Okay, what a case is not. It's not, your mission statement, for instance, and it isn't even you all that much. People are giving to help other people. I give to help other people. Specialists are not reading your case. They're giving you a little bit of their valuable time. You already suffer from a problem that you have to cure, which is called the curse of knowledge. 30 minutes after you've been hired, you start to talk in the office jargon, and that's the end of it. You can't see yourselves the way outsiders do. This is a case for support written by committee. It is verbatim. I've taken out the name of the place because it's a very famous university, but they sent this to me for my response, and so I looked at it, I puzzled over it. And then I sent it back to them, and I just basically replaced every place they used the word jargon with the word jargon. And a couple of times they went so crazy that I replaced it with the word pompous. Now, I wasn't trying to insult them, and they expected this to be my reaction. They just didn't know how bad it was, and it was really awful, and it was just not ready for the outside world. The language we think is, understood commonly by everyone. Well, yeah, it is intellectually, but it isn't understood emotionally. And so you can use words like community and think, strong word, when in fact I'm not quite sure I know what you mean by that. You want to just talk to people as you would talk to people, not as you might write an essay to people. That's the advice of George Smith, one of the greatest fundraising copywriters ever. Unfortunately, died too young in England. But everything should sound like conversation. So here, there's the front cover of a zoo makeover campaign, and all it was an odd look at a giraffe, not the normal look, which is the long neck, but at a different part of the giraffe's body. And what's next? And then you open it up, and it says, coming soon with your help, making the donor the real hero. And this is borrowed from my favorite guru on earth, Seth Godin. Subscribe, it's free. And where he talks about all sorts of marketing things, but it occasionally about fundraising as well. And he said the story is actually about the donor. It's not about you. It's about me, my self-image, thinking I'm fitting in, thinking I'm honoring a memory, thinking that I'm doing the right thing, thinking that I'm part of a community, if you actually can get me to think that way. And I want to end here with an example of a recent case for support for the Wild Center. Now, this is the cover, and they fall in love with the wild. And what that is, actually, they're kind of probing. Do you care about the wild? And the people that are going to give you money are people who do care about the wild, not the Wild Center, but nature. Fall in love with the wild. That's kind of a pun. And then you open it up, and here's the first spread, and be the solution to the biggest problem on Earth, safeguarding the future, because nature needs us. We can't do it without your help. There's the river otter. Here's the nut spread where they show kind of, what they do. Well, they do things with kids, obviously. They go out, paddle around, they look at animals and blah, 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 take photos and so forth. And this is the back of that case, and it's a wonderful case because it ends so perfectly. It takes all three of those questions. Why now? Because nature's in danger. Why you? Because you're a family, and your kids are going to discover this amazing world, and they're going to do that because of us, the Wild Center. They'll be able to come here and discover it through us. So again, us now, you, us, whatever, any order. And that's my show. What about some questions?
Thank you so much, Tom. I could listen to you 100 times and still learn something new. So I appreciate
Thanks,
that. And I, too, have a pretty open love for Seth Godin. I mean, all of his books are just so insightful, and his blog, like, he can say so much so succinctly. So, but I know you can too. You are an amazing writer. We are Oh, hey, Julie, how are you doing? I miss you. Hope you come to Cause Camp. So far, let's see. Let's get some questions going. I know that he's good. Tom's good, but I know that he couldn't have answered all of your questions. Yes, you know I'm shameless, Julie. She goes, that was a shameless promotion of Cause Camp. I'm like, I know.
Oh, gosh. Okay, is that Julie Edwards, Northeast Georgia? Yeah,
Yep.
Hi, Julie. We got...
Let's see, Steve is asking. Go ahead. What were you going to say about Julie? Because she can't talk.
Julie's she's one of the best donor communicators I know, and it's fun to just like their Facebook Facebook page and see what she and her staff come up with, because it's always surprising.
She has put together a fun team, but that's because she's fun. And see, she can't even talk to us. We can just give her a hard time if we want to. But here's some real questions now. Okay. I have a client that wants to target major donors, not the entire pyramid. Can you talk about this as a strategy?
Not really. I'm not a fundraiser. I'm a messaging guy. I mean, honestly, to me, the whole pyramid gets kind of the same message. But as you go up the pyramid, and you can afford, really, and it's worth spending more time on mid-tier and potentially major donors, you would customize. I mean, basically, your case it sounds like a thing, but it isn't a thing. It's a message, really. And so if you're talking to somebody who, let's say, was a $250 donor, you want them to become a $500 donor, basically you're trying to double what somebody's been giving to you. You call them up and you say, look, you're wonderful. You have done so much for us. Would you consider doubling your gift? And because here's the campaign we got, and we need your leadership, and so forth and so on. And, that's how you use a case technically. The printed thing, and this was interesting, Randy, the printed thing, that brochure we all think we're supposed to end up with. One of my clients, a big university, when they polled their major gift officers, they found that they weren't taking the printed case with them to meetings with prospective donors, that it was just, it just didn't have relevance to the meeting. It was all just conversation.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's try this one. I love this one because it just has great words in it. Do you have some sort of good prompt template to torture succinct stories out of us? I love that.
Well, I don't know how much faster I can make it than why us, why now, why you. I mean, when I'm working with a client, what I'll say is, tell me one story. And one story about a before and after. So, and a lot of times it's dealing with kids or youth or something. Somebody's coming in, they're ill. I mean, we're in a solutions business, and because there are so many problems in the world. And so, you look at it that way. Just tell me one story. Just tell me one story. And people either have these stories or they don't. And if they don't, they need to be talking to their program people, and they need to get those stories. Part of creating what's called a culture of philanthropy in any nonprofit, what that means is everyone in the nonprofit understands the value of stories and why they need these stories in order to bring them to the supporter base and keep that supporter base energized and inspired and moving in a direction. Now, I'll give you an example of where this can fall apart. And this example comes from an animal welfare charity, and they do incredible work. They have an incredible facility, and they rescue all sorts of animals from almost from the level of insects up to the level of draft horses. And what they had found was, though they were doing great work, their annual donors were declining. The number of people giving annually was declining fairly steeply. So in 6 years, they had lost 30% of their donors, which brought them to a pause, and they said, something's not working here. What is it? And we were able to find a case study from the UK, which was also animal welfare. And what they found, they went back into their files, and they found that when they talked about human cruelty to animals, giving went up. And when they talked about saving animals, giving went down. It wasn't that people didn't want the animals to be saved. They did, of course. But what they were actually fighting with their gift was human cruelty to animals. And so the lesson here was, okay, we've been talking over the last 6 years in our newsletters and digital and print and on the website and on Facebook. We've been talking about how wonderful everything's going, all the rescues we've been doing. We've been making a basic mistake. We need to also show to donors that these animals need their help, that the cruelty is still ever present and won't go away, and so we need them. And when they started to do that, almost immediately the number of people giving annually started to rise again. So you have to know why people are giving to you. It's the bottom line of that. And really, there's no way to do that except by surveying them or talking to them. And that's why I'm saying that, once you go into a mid-level or major gift situation, talking is the gold standard, not a fancy pants brochure.
All right, we have a couple of people, and this may be our last question. And remember, everyone, stick around for EveryAction. They're going to show you what's up in CRM land these days. They have some great solutions for you around that. So Melissa will be here with EveryAction in just a few minutes, so stick around. But we have a couple of people, Tom, that are asking about, they're just kind of getting started. How do we write a good case story if we don't have a lot of a track record yet?
Well, you have to make a promise. What is it you hope to do? And then it's a matter of finding people out in your community, if you're a local group, for instance, who might care about what this promise is. So, let's go back to Hartford Youth Scholars, which is a group that you saw a couple of things from today. And what they were founded 12 years ago. And when they were founded, probably a week didn't go by where there wasn't a front page story about how lousy the graduation rates were in the city of Hartford, which is a proud city, used to be one of the richest places on earth, but, now is different, and it struggles in the inner city. And the employers there are very worried because this is a national crisis. Finding good employees, finding people that can actually do the work is a national crisis in pretty much every industry. And so we don't want, group after group, generation after generation of people not graduating high school and not being, work ready. We need those people. We really need those people. And so the business world is very concerned about it. And 12 years ago, somebody put up some money, a small group of people, maybe 4, maybe 5, 6, said, we're going to start this program. Now, they based their program on a program that existed in Philadelphia, then had also been transported up to Boston and replicated in Boston, and now they're going to replicate it in Hartford. And it grabs kids in the 6th grade who have good minds, and it just stays with them. no matter what happens in their life, this program stays with them all the way through college graduation, not just high school graduation. And so, why did I get into this? What was the original question, Randy?
Boy, I was just so enthralled by your conversation. I'm like, I think we were talking about not quite having a track record yet.
Oh, yeah, not having a track record. So they didn't have a track record at the start. I mean, it was just like, it's a promise at this point, but this is how we're going to do it. And in their case, they could lean back and say, yes, it worked in Philadelphia. Yes, it worked in Boston. It's working very well, both of those places. Let's do it here. And so they were able to lean on that. You have to lean on something. And obviously, if your promise is we're going to end poverty, I'm going to, mentally anyway, I may not insult you to your face, but basically I'm thinking, no, you're not. Nobody is. This is going to be, that's a big problem. You're not capable. And so tell me why you are capable. And, this will shift over time, obviously, the longer you're in. It takes about 3 years from a starting to have an effective fundraising program. That's when people come and they say, "Oh well, we're one of the 1.6 million new charities that exist in the United States, and we were just founded last week." It's like, oh well, do you have 3 years of budgeting put aside because you're going to need that? You will not be making money for at least 3 years through fundraising. It'll take that long.
Awesome. Well, one last question, because I'm kind of interested personally, because I sit on a board that's having an anniversary, and someone is asking, actually, there's a couple of people. It's kind of interesting how many similar questions we've had today, but a couple of people are asking, do you have any suggestions for an anniversary case for support, like a 50-year anniversary or, something along that line?
Oh, great excuse. Great excuse to thank generations of supporters who have made this all possible. And, one of the biggest problems, Randy, I see is that you're a charity, but you don't appear to be a charity. And so I was speaking to the National Boys and Girls Club, and they're a perfect example of that. The National is listed every year by Forbes as, probably one of the top 10, if not maybe 20 charities in the United States in terms of revenue, biggest. And yet, if you go down to the local level, many Boys and Girls Clubs are situated in inner cities. There's no money there, really. And they struggle to raise money. And so what you will see if you go to their websites is all the great work they're doing. They've got kids, they've got, so they got the cuteness factor, everything. Everybody's smiling, they're doing great stuff, they're doing their homework, they're getting fed, they're playing on teams, they're active and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to eventually be, because this is the program, more likely to be successful adults. However, all you'll see that is any indication that they need your help, this particular local club needs your help, is a donate button, which is trite because every charity on the face of the earth on their website has a donate button. And it's just not enough. I have to know you need me. And that is often not clear.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom, for your time today. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I always learn when we're together, and so thank you for that. Thank you for your ongoing support for Nonprofit Hub. I forgot to mention to everyone, your handout is in the right-hand column in the handout section if you want to get that. And it looks like Melissa's on board, so thanks once again, Tom.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming.
And now we're going to hand it over to EveryAction. How are you, Melissa?
I'm good. Thanks so much. Thanks, Tom.
You bet.
I learn a lot every time I listen to you, so I appreciate that. And I think, at EveryAction, we really love working with smart people like Tom because They only help us make better choices when we're building tools for fundraisers. And I think a couple things make us a little bit different from some of the other CRMs on the market. One, we really believe that the whole reason to use technology is to lighten your load. I don't know, I've been a fundraiser for over 25 years, really more years than I'd like to admit. And I felt like sometimes I was using tool systems that was not lightening my load. So I think that's the first thing that we come to. And we are practitioner-led. Fundraisers lead our teams and teams of engineers, of course, who build the software. But in terms of deciding what people want, we do that through fundraisers. The other thing that we do a lot is we really help you take the messaging that smart people like Tom put together and make it easier for you to use. So one of the things that we think about, for as long as I've been a fundraiser, everybody talked about the ladder of engagement, and somehow you had that first interaction with the donor, and then if you were an amazing fundraiser, you got more money every year until that person passed on and then they left you your house. I'm not sure that was ever a really good way to think about fundraising, but I definitely think at this point in time that's changed a lot. I think what we have moved to is what I think of as the jungle gym of engagement. People get on, people get off. Some people want to go to the top. Some people just want to go across to the other side. And so I think you really need a CRM that will help you manage those communications so that you can really segment better and target better and automate better, so that you really can do all the things that you need to do, and you can have multiple donor journeys for your donors and get them to where they want to go, which ultimately helps you retain them and helps them give you more money. The other thing we think a lot about, which I do consider the holy grail of fundraising: right message, right person, right time. It has been my experience whenever you can achieve that, you are going to raise more money. So we also build tools in our system that helps you, again, determine who the right people are for the particular ask that you're going to make. We help you figure out what's your strongest messaging, and we help you pick out that time. And then we give you the segmentation tools so that it's easy to get that messaging out. And then we have really strong reporting. So after the fact, you can see exactly what you did and exactly what worked the best and what didn't. So in terms of what we do, we are a multi-channel fundraising and communication system. So what this really means is that you can manage your donors, all of your donors, and all of your different fundraising programs in one place. So we work with the groups who do the direct mail, the telemarketing, the email. We have strong sustainer tools. We let you run digital ads. A lot of our clients use Facebook and other digital ads for acquisition. We have a really strong major gifts management, including moves management program, planned giving, grants management. We do advocacy for groups that have that part of their program. You can do volunteer management in our system. We have what I think is one of the best reporting and analytics set of tools right at your fingertips, powerful but easy segmentation, and we even include SMS as a way of reaching your donors. And so I think we offer a huge advantage in that you can do everything in one system. You can see the full way that your donor interacts with your organization, and we make it easy at the same time. We also think for each of these, we really try to think, what are the little things that we can build into the tools that just out of the box will make your day-to-day easier. So just to kind of give you a couple of places where that shows up. We really spend a lot of time on our forms. This one here is Greenpeace, and one of the things, if you're doing sustainers at all, is you want to be able to get that sustainer ask front and center, and you want to get that asking string with your monthly donor, but you don't want to stop people who aren't ready to do that and just want to do a one-time donation. So right out of the box here, you can toggle back and forth and have different ask strings and do what you need to do for your program. Also, everything in our system, again, just little things that we try to make it easier for you right out of the box. Everything we do is mobile responsive. You don't have to do anything, and your forms and everything else that you do will look great on any screen of any size. Again, what we try to do, in terms of lightening their load, we think fundraisers should think about fundraising strategy and great fundraising creative, and details like this, we should figure those out for you and make them easy. So I hope that you might think of getting a demo of EveryAction, especially if you're not familiar with us. I think we take a little bit different approach to the system. I think fundraisers are really excited about what they see when they take a look, and you can take as little as a half hour of your time and just see what we're talking about. And thank you so much for having us today. It's really our pleasure to be able to sponsor this. Tom's great. I think he adds so much to the field, and we're really proud to be a part of this.
Yes, and thank you so much, Melissa. And you have a great holiday season as we round out the end of the year here. And everyone should be thinking about their CRM as they enter the new year.
Yeah, start your new year with a better set of tools.
All right. Well, thank you so much to EveryAction for all that you do for Nonprofit Hub, and thanks to everyone for staying in. The only thing that we ask for as far as payment is that you fill out the survey at the end of this presentation. And thanks so much for so many of you sticking around after that great presentation from Tom as well to hear about EveryAction. So with all of that, I think this is our last one of the year. So we'll see you in 2019. Now go out and do more good.